is a Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. My name is Tony Ingram, and this is the September 12th, episode 204. If you want to see all my episodes of Walk in the Park, you can go to my website, walkinthepark.tv. Walkinthepark.tv, that is a website. And you can search for them and find out different categories and so forth. They'll also go by date. This is produced in Ithaca, New York. Public Access Television, Channel 13, Pegasus is Pegasus Studio. Pegasus stands for Public Educational Government Access System. We have 3 channels, Channel 13, 15, and 16. Channel 13 is the public access, and you can go to our website, pegasus.webstarts.com, and see the schedule of all of our series going on Public Access Television, Channel 13. You can also find out the next training if you would like to become a local public access producer yourself, like myself, volunteer, come down here. You don't get paid, you don't pay anybody if you live locally, and you can take a course and get certified and then take out equipment or use the studio if you're trained in that, and have your own TV show like I've had for years now. So this has been a funny week. Not a funny week, I shouldn't say that, I'm sorry. This has been a somber week to start off with the 9/11 17th anniversary, and I made this video 5 years ago to commemorate that, and also how some people dealt with the trauma by coming upstate and going to places like our parks. And I ran into them at that time during 2001, right after 9/11. So let's look at this video, and this will In the agonizing days and weeks that followed September 11th, 2001, thousands of people showed up at parks in upstate New York, escaping the trauma of that horrible day, looking to soothe their souls in the arms of Mother Nature. And that is one of the main reasons I think we have places like parks. So go out and heal yourself. Well, we're going to take a look at some other kind of healing that people working in parks are doing. There are invaders that come to our parks and come to our landscape in general. Let's go take a look at that here. There's invasive species I'm talking about, plants and animals that come from other places, some of which get out of control and have no controls in the new ecosystem they've entered, that is ours or others, and they can cause great damage to an ecosystem, to agriculture, to public health, and lots of different effects, and with little to control them. So I'm going to this is a program I'm going to read you about here. This is called Three Gorges Project. This is initiated by the state parks, the Finger Lakes State Parks locally. It's a 2-year initiative funded by Great Lakes Restoration Initiative and administered by the Environmental Protection Agency. The Three Gorges Project focuses on invasive species management and restoration in the riparian areas, that's water areas, of Buttermilk Falls, Robert H. Treman, and Taughannock Falls State Parks. This project supports an 8-person Forces Stewardship Corps. Forces stands for Friends of Recreation, Conservation, and Environmental Stewardship, for summer 2018 and again in the summer 2019. The Stewardship Corps spent summer 2018 mapping, surveying, and removing invasive species, in addition to mapping and collecting native plants and seed and educating the public. And that's continued on this year, this summer. So in the middle of last month, then August, it's actually August 15th, there was a public tour given at Taughannock Falls State Park to give an example of some of the kinds of work they've been doing. We covered a bit of that in the last couple of episodes, and we considered a plant that is, get back to my normal screen here, excuse me, that is one of the plants they've been trying to monitor and control and to measure that. So it's called pale swallowwort. There's also a black swallowwort, but we're mainly concerned about pale swallowwort. And it is rampant now. It comes from, I guess, Europe, and it is really taken over. Like when I worked at Taughannock Falls State Park, back behind the headquarters building, it kind of looked like this. This is not there, but it's a similar location. The woods were full of pale swallowwort, and there wasn't room for anything else, pretty much. So that's the area they're actually studying and doing some removal on. And so let's go right there. Let's go to Taughannock Falls State Park, up the west shore of Cayuga Lake, maybe 7 miles north of the city. And of course you can see the city of Ithaca down there in this Google map. Now we'll get right above it. We'll zoom in on Taughannock Point. That's pointing up into Cayuga Lake there. And then you can see the gorge coming up from the bottom, winding up from the bottom. And just to the left of the gorge is a road that sort of follows it. And in between those roads, there is, well, in between the road and the gorge, I should say, there is, zooming down to a building just to the left of center. That's the Finger Lake State Parks regional headquarters, where I worked for 24 years. And just to the right of that is where this program started out, the program that we're going to see, the actual public presentation, public walk. So we're going to actually start off with that. Last week we got an introduction to that in the pale swallowwort. Now we're going to continue with talking about monitoring. So let's go to the next video.
Hi guys, my name is Carlin Wakefield. I'm the Stewardship Corps lead this summer. I'm going to be talking to you guys about biomonitoring. So this is a big part of our project. This is where we're actually looking at the plant communities that we're working with and trying to gauge how they change over time, how effective we are over time, and just generally if they're healthy or not, pre and post treatment. So there are two ways that we're mostly doing biomonitoring this summer. The first way is we're taking photo reference points. So we're standing very close to one of our photo reference points, and I'll pass around pictures that we took in 2017, last summer, and in 2018 post-treatment. It's labeled number 3. This is photo reference point number 3. And then I will also pass around our map of our photo reference points. You can see Taughannock Falls on one side. You can look at the whole gorge and where we have points all over the gorge. And on the other side is Buttermilk Falls. And I have another paper with Robert H. Treman on it. So I'll just pass these around so you guys can all take a look. We'll keep them together, I guess, would be the easiest. Alright, so our other way of biomonitoring for this project is stratified random samples. Our coworker Adam will be taking you through the transect and through everything that's involved in the stratified random sampling, so you'll get an in-depth perspective on how we do that. I'm just going to go into the photo reference points. So when we're taking a photo reference point, we have tags on the trees that we identified trees that are in the spot that we want to monitor. So we find our tag on the tree. They're usually facing away from the trail, so people don't come up and take our tags or think maybe they're hurting the tree, which sometimes happens. So we take a picture of our tag just for organizational purposes, and then we start facing north. So north is this way, and then we turn in a circle holding the camera at chest length and take pictures of all 4 cardinal directions. So that's represented in the pictures that I'll be passing around. Basically what we're trying to do is, as much as possible, get pictures of what these areas look like before treatment and after treatment. So we're trying to figure out, 1, how successful our treatment is, and 2, how healthy our plant communities are after they've been treated. In this case with some different herbicides or manual removal, depending on the point. So another big part of biomonitoring is, with our connection to the EPA, we created a quality assurance protocol. And this is, with our connection to the EPA, we wanted to make sure that we're setting goals with them. And the big goals this summer are native community restoration. So we're not trying to come in and just eradicate all the invasive species. Our main goal is to make sure our communities are healthy. And a lot of that involves removing some invasives and treating some invasives. So with the quality assurance protocol, we're basically trying to show people that we're not cutting corners, that this is all very well thought out and planned, and that we're really caring about our community's health, and that we're not going to do anything that's going to go in and disrupt. And if we're seeing there is some disruption, and maybe our results aren't looking like we want them to, then we can always assess along the way and, change things based on what we need to change. So yeah, that's basically all I have on the photo reference points. I have another set of pictures that we're going to be passing a pretty distinctive tree on the way to our transects that we will show you. So when we stop at that tree, I will kind of gather everyone together and we can look at how it has looked through July of 2017, October 2017, May of 2018, and July 2018, because you can really see pre-treatment, post-treatment, and then how it's grown back after treatment. Any questions?
What were you looking for here?
So here, in the picture that's passing around, you can see on both sides of the trail, swallowwort has grown rampant. And so if you look behind you, a lot of these, what you see are dead swallowwort stems. So this is post-treatment, and you can unfortunately see a few new swallowwort plants popping up. There will always be a few that miss treatment or manual removal, but now that it's been treated, this is going to make it much easier for us to come in and pull out those individuals by hand. Okay, so I can, if there's no other questions, I can lead the way. The unique tree that we're going to be looking at is just right into the woods, and then we'll stop at that, kind of look at the difference, pass around this picture, and then we'll head up into the woods a little bit further south, and Adam will take over and explain everything that you guys need to know about our transects and the stratified random sampling that we do. Okay, thank you so much. All right, I'll lead the way. The unique tree. So I'm passing around the picture so everybody can see this area.
Are you talking about the dead tree?
Yeah.
So was it cold?
There's that would you would see in agricultural use where it just covers everything and soaks down to the soil. It's usually just a little spray, and as long as they have it on the leaves a little bit, so we try to lessen the impact to avoid the things we don't want to disturb. Adam, did you want to go over while we're here and all gathered around the intro, and then we could walk the transect, or would you like? Okay.
Yep. Hi everyone, I'm Adam Sullivan. I'm another member of the Environmental Stewardship core team, and I want to talk about transects and why we do them and what they're useful for. So we chose to do these in only plant communities that were significant, and we take the boundary of this community and we start at least 10 meters in so that we're not hitting any plants in the transition areas. And sometimes we hit borders like cliffs or roads or walls, but if that's the case, again, we take that 10-meter buffer and start from there. Yeah, so if you all wouldn't mind following me, I can show you where the transect starts.
So why did you call it a significant community and what's that?
So it's significant because it's been determined to be important for the ecosystem by our experts, and so that's we want to study what's there and how abundant the plants are that are there.
It's also looking at a fairly large scale. So there's often like micro communities, even just what we're going to walk through right now. But the photo reference point maps, I believe, also show the natural communities, so you can see they're fairly large areas that we're looking at. Yeah.
So you're also creating a baseline when you do this for the future?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So the unique tree is unique. Ike and Lindsay and Tom Hughes from Central. So it's been a project that was born through Becky's observation. She had been working with swallowwort for many years, digging them up, cutting them, and then one day she was like, well, I'm doing all this work and I don't know if it's working or not. And how can we measure whether it's actually working or not? And that's how this project had initiated, and it was way before the Three Gorges, right? Mm-hmm. When we started talking about it. And we put together this idea. And where I come from, I recognize that invasive plants as swallowwort is just one of the many factors that may affect native vegetation. And most noticeably, there are two other factors that I'm interested on. One of them is deer. So white-tailed deer, if you're from around, you know that deer are really, really abundant. They like to eat everything. They can go through pounds and pounds of food in one day. And they unfortunately do not like many of our invasive plants. They do not eat swallowwort. It's toxic to them. So they will avoid the swallowwort, and all of the other species around them will start growing, but eat everything else. So the swallowwort will do really well. So we wanted to measure what was the effect of swallowwort, but also what was the effect of deer. And that's why we constructed these exclosures that you see here on the back, where you have a fence plot here, right here on the back behind the fence, and an open plot where we just walk through. And we're measuring how does the management of swallowwort, so they applied herbicide here, how does that affect swallowwort coming back, but how does that also compare between the swallowwort between the fence and the open area for the deer. The other factor that we're interested on are earthworms. You probably have heard that most of the earthworms that we have in New York State are not local, they're not native. They either come from Asia or from Europe. I have a few samples here, but they're in formalin, so please don't open up the jar. Formalin does cause cancer. And these earthworms are from Asia. Last year that was so rainy, they become super abundant and they were all over the state. There was a big push through IMAPs actually to sample them this year and get points where they are. And earthworms eat the leaf litter depth. So if you were to move the soil here, you see that there's almost no depth and no leaf layer. They eat it all up, and then the soil becomes compacted, the water dries out, moves out, so the plants dry out the seeds, and they also get uprooted. So there's also effects on native vegetation. So as part of that, we're also monitoring earthworms throughout these plots, and we're measuring how the vegetation is coming back through two ways. One is through vegetation monitoring, so you can see those orange plots marked there. They are permanent vegetation quadrats where we have counted and measured the number of species, plant species that are present. And then we are also going to be bringing in transplants. So we've propagated native species and we are going to be planting them into the plots to see how well they do. And the expectation and what we're hoping for is that in this site where swallowwort has been managed, they will do much better than in our control site where swallowwort has not been managed. And that way we can get at that question that has been puzzling us. It's like, is it really worth it, all that we're doing? And are we really helping native vegetation by doing what we're doing? And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks. Thank you.
Alright, so we can continue up here. The transect's set up not too far away.
What was your name again?
Andrea.
Andrea.
Andrea Davels.
And you're not with this.
I'm not part
team.
of Parks. I am part of SUNY Cortland.
Okay, so you're a researcher at SUNY Cortland, or
I'm a faculty member at
faculty
SUNY
member?
Cortland.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going directly to the next video, which is going to be treatment. So we'll go to the overlook.
So, hi everyone, I'm Johanna Little, and I'm going to give you a quick rundown of some of our mapping techniques that we've used during this project. Is everyone familiar with using a GPS, or at least the concept of a GPS? Yes. Great, okay. So we use our GPS in conjunction with our data sheet. Data can get confusing if you just have, hundreds of points inside a GPS. So on these data sheets, we record the point number, coordinates, species, and then at the bottom there is a 1 to 5 numbering system that indicates cover class, which can range from rare to dominant, depending on the number. And I can pass this data sheet around if you guys want to get a closer look at. That's okay. Okay, so depending on what we're surveying for and how abundant it is, we'll use 2 different types of mapping techniques. We'll either use points for things that are closer to a 1 on the 1 to 5 scale. Those things can be single plants or single patches of plants. Marking a point is fairly self-explanatory. We go over, we mark it in our GPS, record the information, record the cover class, and we're done. Polygons or tracks are a little bit more complicated. They require a person with the GPS to trace the edge of an area. So if you have this is one of the areas that we did do a major polygon in. We pick a starting point, which was that little walnut tree right over there, and we follow the edge of the swallowwort. If the swallowwort plants kind of become separated from each other, they are still one polygon as long as they are within 12 meters of the last plant. So I've laid out 12 meters and what that looks like here. If there's a plant at one end and then at this end, they're still part of one polygon. Anyone have an idea of why that could be problematic? No? Bingo. Exactly. So this area, we did a polygon which covered 70 acres. And in that area, do we think that it was all swallowwort? No. So another technique that we used just within this past week in order to get a better idea of where we should maybe be applying herbicide, we used more of a 3-meter technique to map just the most dense polygons of swallowwort so that we can give the contractor a better estimate of acreage. Both of those are visible on this map, which I'll pass around, but I just want to show you that this big yellow polygon is that big polygon. The little purple things are kind of more that way, and those were all the dense patches. Now, make a point of looking at the polygon in comparison to the gorge, and you'll see that our giant swallowwort polygon is the same size as the entire gorge, and that's not a very accurate representation of how much swallowwort is in this area. So we can pass that around.
Nobody quit after that day, though, which was awesome.
Yeah, it was quite the initiation process. I don't think, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything, but I think that that's a basic overview. One other thing I wanted to point out, using a grid system for surveying can be really effective, and I think that this area, if it was flat, it probably would have been more effective, but unfortunately the topography back there is so up and down and crazy that using a grid system just would not have been an adequate way of surveying this entire area. It would have been way too difficult. And I think that's about all I have. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, cool, thanks.
I will hop up here. My name is Adelia Baker. I will give a little overview about the herbicide treatments. So between the three parks, so Taughannock, Buttermilk Falls, and Robert H. Treman, this park here has the largest area that is being treated with chemicals. Here we have, along both of the rim trails, there are 18 acres. This was estimates from the beginning of this year, I think. 18 acres along the rim trails that need rope and harness access to be treated. So those were mapped separately, and then there were 12 acres that could be treated just going in by foot. And at Buttermilk Falls has only 1.5 acres, and Robert H. Treman only has 7 acres being treated. And that's just for swallowwort. I have some maps here of native plants. We have David Worrier go through and map some rare local plants, mostly along the gorges, and I have maps of each of the parks here. And so we want to keep track of where these are so that they aren't impacted too much by the herbicides, because they can possibly overlap. And like Joanna was saying, within those areas that we have mapped already, not the entire area is dense. So like she said, we've gone back and we've done some more specific looking at just the dense areas. So we have a more specific idea of what needs to be done. And so the contractor will go in with a backpack sprayer. I think someone had a question about this earlier. He'll go in with a backpack sprayer. It's very specific. He can spray just a few plants. We're not going in and coating the whole area with herbicides. There could possibly be some splash over onto other plants too, but he does try to be as specific as possible. He knows what plants to look for, so it's not too bad. Nope. We do ask him to just focus on the specific plants that are being treated.
No, I know. I mean, every single swallowwort, you're not spraying each one.
That ideally he is, but he can be specific with his application. So he's not getting too much splash over onto other plants. And it's a foliar spray, so he just has to get it onto the leaves and the plants will die. And it is forb specific, so it's not going to affect grasses, yeah. So it's just forbs, herbaceous plants.
What is it?
Yes, sorry, I forgot to even mention that. Triclopyr ester, and then also glyphosate. I think it's focusing more with the triclopyr ester though.
Yeah, so glyphosate has some waterproof formulations. Triclopyr can't be used within a certain proximity to water, so there's some areas that we just didn't treat this year because it was too close, and then these guys came in and did manual removal. Or there's glyphosate water-approved formulation, so we can do that a little bit closer. But the triclopyr, the idea of switching was that after we've done a year or two of removals, we want to be able to start planting things. We don't just want this open area. Disturbance really favors invasive species, so we're trying to get native things back in there pretty quick, which we'll talk about more. But the idea is that we could start planting grasses, and then if we're using triclopyr, which is forb specific, we're not just killing everything we plant every year. We could actually get the cover back up with native species.
Glyphosate is broad spectrum, isn't it?
Yes. Right.
That's
so
Roundup, isn't it?
Yes. So we did glyphosate the first year, and now we've switched over so that we can start planting native grasses back in. So all the research has been done for these, not by us, but we have to take all of that into account. We have to do the State Environmental Quality Assurance Act before we apply any of this stuff. We're also doing some water testing. We're doing things like benthic macrovertebrate surveys before and after and upstream and downstream of herbicide. We're doing salamander studies because in the away from water, they're still pretty sensitive creatures, so we want to see if we're affecting those populations.
Well, that's all we have time for today. Last week we did cover manual removal of swallowwort down in the gorge, along the gorge trail. But anyway, I encourage you to go out for a walk in the park, and we'll see you again soon. So here's our goodbye image, and then we'll go right to our credits right now. Is a